Whenever the topic of digital transformation comes up, it's hard for me not to refer to some of the industry giants that rose to stellar heights and fell either due to complacency, mismanagement, or lack of innovation. Let's take the company RIM, the producers of BlackBerry, for example. BlackBerry once reigned supreme as the king of the smartphone industry, selling as much as 50 million units at its peak in 2011. At one point, BlackBerry controlled 50% of the smartphone market in the US and 20% globally. BlackBerry phones were everywhere and even became a status symbol. I remember back in college, you weren't part of the cool kids if you didn't own a BlackBerry and had the BlackBerry Messenger. And there were levels to your coolness depending on the model of the BlackBerry. I remember the lengths my friends and I went to afford the BlackBerry Torch and how we felt like kings of campus with our BlackBerries, telling everybody, "Ping my BlackBerry, I'll ping you. Didn't you get my ping?" BlackBerry won the hearts of many both at the corporate and social levels. Even in 2007, when Steve Jobs launched the iPhone that did away with the physical keyboard, it didn't immediately affect BlackBerry sales because it didn't cater to the business market and it was still more expensive than the BlackBerry. So BlackBerry carried on business as usual. But BlackBerry underestimated how quickly the market was changing. iPhone and Android devices were releasing new and improved models each year when BlackBerry was iterating on the same physical features when the operating system remained relatively unchanged. Whilst Apple and Android supported multiple apps that met the needs of customers, the BlackBerry operating system continued to lag behind. Now, when the realization hit and they made several attempts to keep up with the pace of digital transformation, they eventually tried to switch to the Android operating system, but they were too late and nothing distinguished them in the market. These days, BlackBerry is a software company that focuses on security and enterprise software, and even though they still make phones, they only make up about 0.05% of the global market, which is effectively nothing. BlackBerry became complacent because they were at the top and stopped competing. The former CEO had said that no matter how many apps the iPhone had, the only app anyone needed was the browser. Now that epitomizes the stubbornness of the company's leadership, which lost them their share of the market. Even though BlackBerry tried to digitally transform, it failed to do so, similar to many other successful large corporates, and it's the reasons for these repeated failures to digitally transform that I speak about in this video. So stay tuned. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jeremy, and if you're new here and haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so because on this channel I speak about agile transformation, digital strategy, and personal development. Similar to BlackBerry and several large tech firms of the past, banks are an example of large corporates that have dominated the financial industry for quite some time. However, the paradigm shift that has been caused by technology and the internet is forcing banks to rethink their strategy and increasingly adopt digital solutions in order to keep up with the pace of change. However, despite the huge budgets and resources that banks throw at digital transformation, the statistic remains that 70% of all digital transformation efforts fail. Now, here are 5 of some of the main reasons why. Number 1, we have not focusing on the customer. Large corporates like banks often tend to have different reasons for pursuing digital transformation agendas. Most of the time, it's because of dwindling revenue lines, a need to prevent getting disrupted by challengers such as fintechs or tech firms, or even shallower than that, the need to portray themselves as modern or in line with the digital times. However, the customer should be the entire focal point of digital transformation. It's the customer experience that digital transformation should aim to improve. Focus on what the customer needs or wants and work backwards towards the product or service or channel that needs to be transformed digitally in order to meet those needs of the customer. Now, once the customer is happy, they patronize your offering, your revenue lines go up, you inherently become more competitive, and naturally you begin to become recognized as a digitally transformed institution. Just like BlackBerry, you don't want to be focusing on the physical technology when the customer's needs are centered around the software and user experience. Not focusing on what the customer wants is one of the main reasons why digital transformation fails. Next is not having the right culture. Now, experts have agreed that an organization's inherent culture can make or break organizational transformation. Now, despite the fact that transformation is called digital, culture is at the heart and center of digital transformation. Naturally, large corporates such as banks have a culture that is resistant to change. One, because they are heavily regulated and have to make sure that innovation doesn't create additional risk. And two, because they're usually doing very well and have been doing very well for a long time with existing processes and are making huge profits each year. So if it's not broken, why fix it? But this rigid culture and mindset needs to change in an increasingly digitally competitive world. An agile mindset that embraces collaboration, new business models, and being proactive rather than reactive is necessary to achieving effective digital transformation. But evidently, this is easier said than done. Trying to change the mindset of a large incumbent like a bank is like teaching an old dog new tricks. It usually has to start and be driven by the senior leadership of the company in order for it to trickle down to the lower levels. The problem there is often those at the top are the toughest minds to change. So speaking of leadership leads us to our next point, which is not hiring the right talent or for the right skills. There is a German proverb that says, to change and to change for the better are two different things. Sometimes organizations do make the efforts to change. They create new roles internally and create a new strategy as evidence of their willingness to change. However, this does not mean they change for the better. We saw BlackBerry make changes that didn't help them in any way. Failing to hire the right talent to drive transformation is a major factor why digital transformation initiatives fail. The typical approach by large corporates like banks is to take existing staff who are considered talented and reassign them to a digital transformation office. Most often, they pick older staff because they are felt to possess more experience. But as the chief operating officer of the software and testing company Eggplant put it, anyone who thinks they can transform their company in such a fundamental way with the same people and executive team is kidding themselves. It's important not to compromise on finding people with the right digital leadership skills, the understanding and experience to help you transform, whilst at the same time finding ways to retain your staff who understand your business, the market, and customers. Next is lacking clear goals. When it comes to digital transformation, a lot of companies define it differently. Some people feel they need to have an artificial intelligence team to prevent them from losing their jobs in the future. Others feel they need a digital transformation office that hosts hackathons and tech contests to glean innovative ideas. But the reality is that you just can't embark on a digital transformation for digital transformation's sake. There needs to be a clear goal, and you have to articulate what that intended outcome should be from a business perspective. It could either be to reduce costs, to be more agile and faster in your product delivery, or to position your company competitively in the market. Not defining clear goals means your organization will end up with people going in lots of different directions with no alignment, and eventually that leads to failure. Additionally, not setting clear goals means the initiatives that should go into achieving these goals will not be properly defined, therefore your efforts are misunderstood and most likely will be underfunded, which is a guaranteed way to sabotage your digital transformation efforts right off the bat. Finally, we have legacy systems. Many traditional banks operate hard to transform legacy systems, which make both changing the IT architecture and implementing new systems painful, slow, and expensive. Large corporates don't necessarily need to change these systems. However, they do need to ensure that their workflows and customer experience are not dictated by these old mammoths that they aren't willing to let go. They need to be open to new approaches and think through their technology so they aren't so focused on what's shiny and new, but what actually fills the gaps in their legacy technologies. So friends, those are a few of the general reasons why digital transformation fails in large institutions such as banks. The statistic is real, and 70% of digital transformation efforts do fail. However, rather than letting that prevent you from getting going or give you an excuse to fall short, it should rather inform the level of priority and seriousness to attach to these efforts. Focus on the customer, adopt a culture of innovation, Don't cheap out on hiring the right talent with relevant skills. Clearly define and articulate your goals and be willing to evolve your legacy systems. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up and drop me a comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.